Ferrari's win in Austria was a great show of the F175's potential and what their incredible engine can do. Charles Leclerc had Max Verstappen on the ropes from very early on in the race, and once he passed him, he never looked back. They had a great chance at securing a 1-2 finish, but Carlos Sainz's late retirement meant they missed points. But could it mean much more? Was Austria the perfect example of why Ferrari can't win either championship this year? Let's find out. In Austria, Ferrari had what was, in our opinion, the strongest race of the season so far. They secured more points in other races this season, but this was the first time they really looked able to not just fight Red Bull and Max Verstappen, but actually beat him in a straight fight. The only time Max hasn't won a race this season was due to retirements and damage in Bahrain and Australia, and in Monaco he could never pass the two Ferraris, because it was Monaco and no one can pass anyone. Austria was the first time he has lost a race just on pure pace alone. There are a lot of reasons for why the balance of power shifted in Ferrari's favour in Austria, but today we're going to focus on one area: their engine. It has been talked about all season, with many people saying it's the best engine on the grid, but it might also be the reason they lose the championships this season. Early on in the season, Ferrari and their engine customers showed just how powerful the new power unit was. On the opening weekend of the season, 5 of the 6 Ferrari customers finished in the points, and Mick Schumacher, who was the only one who didn't, missed out by 1 place. Lots of people, including us, were raving about how much power it had and how it was a huge indicator that they might go on and win the championship. The most telling aspect of Ferrari's new power unit was how much better it was than Mercedes, who had been the dominant force in the sport for years. The only time Ferrari really had a chance of competing with Mercedes from 2014 to 2021 was in 2019. Mercedes' dominance during that time was down to the incredible power unit they managed to produce. There was a time in 2019 when Ferrari's PU was clear at the top of the engine power chart, with their straight-line speed superior to the likes of Mercedes and Red Bull. But following accusations of cheating, the FIA and Ferrari came to a private agreement at the end of the season after the former placed the Scuderia under investigation. The full results of that private agreement were never made available to the public, but it was clear that whatever sanctions the FIA did put in place had a negative impact on Ferrari's power. In 2020, they slumped to the worst Constructors' Championship result in 4 decades, with a P6 finish. Early on in the season, ex-F1 driver turned pundit Mark Schurer floated the idea that the agreement that stopped Ferrari running the same power unit in 2020 may have been a blessing in disguise for the Scuderia. Maybe the conditions Ferrari got from the FIA 3 years ago have been an advantage for the 2022 engines, which are partly fueled with E10 petrol, Schurer said. It may be that Ferrari was able to cope with this innovation through early research. One thing is certain, the customer teams from Haas and Alfa Romeo also benefit from the powerful drive. Whatever happened behind the scenes, Ferrari seemed to have nailed the design early in the season. Valtteri Bottas spoke out about the engine earlier in the season, commented on 2 points of distinction of the Ferrari engine: energy deployment and drivability. Engine power, no big difference honestly. So that means they made progress from last year, he said in reference to the Ferrari engine in comparison to the Mercedes engine of 2021. But the drivability to me, that's the big difference. That's the strength of Ferrari's engine, the drivability. From corner exit, it feels like it gives more options of what gears to use and so on. So drivability, I would say, is the big plus on the Ferrari engine. What is it about the Ferrari engine though that makes it so great? And if it is so great, why does it keep on failing? Well, unfortunately for the team, one of the reasons it is so good might also be part of the reason why it is so bad. Team principal Mattia Binotto said the initial indication is Carlos Sainz's failure in Austria shared the same cause as Leclerc's previous one. Obviously, we need to look at what happened today. Is it the same we had already as the one in Baku with Charles? Very likely. It's certainly a concern, but the people back at Maranello are working very hard trying to fix them, which is not solved yet, and obviously looking at what happened to Carlos, it has not been solved yet. It turns out that the problem in Austria and Baku weren't quite the same, but the Baku retirement was a knock-on of Leclerc's retirement in Barcelona. In Barcelona, Charles Leclerc had to stop on the side of the track when his car gave up with an overheating turbo and MGUH. Then in Baku, Ferrari found that his engine had collected some debris within the ICE from the turbo that broke in Barcelona, which caused his pistons to not work. Sainz's retirement in Austria was caused by the exact same thing as Leclerc's retirement in Barcelona. Each time there has been a temperature problem with the turbo and MGUH. It is thought that this happens because the exhaust on the turbo powers the dynamo of the MGU-H in the Ferrari engine. This means the MGU-H charges quicker, but also puts some added strain onto the turbo. Because of how the two interact, they produce a lot less stress and consequently become very hot very quickly. It is the interaction between the two that helps the Ferrari engine have the power it does, but it appears that the extra strain created on the engine is also the cause of the malfunctions they've been having. While Mattia Binotto confirmed that his team is working on identifying and fixing the issue in the medium term, the Ferrari boss is aware they also have to manage the situation for the next few races. These are problems that are worrying for the next races, not in the medium term, because I'm convinced that as a team we'll be able to solve them. We have a very performing engine, and this gives me hope for the future when we have found a way to make it solid as well. Resolutions of this type need time. It is necessary to design new components, produce them, homologate them for reliability. A few weeks are not enough. In the short term, we'll try to manage it in terms of mileage. Ferrari are working tirelessly at their factory in Maranello to try and solve the problem though, and will be bringing upgrades to the engine after the summer break. They are aiming to upgrade the hybrid element of the engine in either Spa or Monza, which will hopefully fix the reliability problems and help produce more energy each lap. With the engines being homologated until 2026 this season, Ferrari decided to prioritize power over reliability when designing their engine for this season. The only engine upgrades allowed once the engines are completely homologated will be the reliability ones. We pushed hard on performance, knowing that the power units would be frozen until 2026. I am confident also thinking about the next season, said Mattia Binotto. The decision to prioritize the long-term power of the engine is going to have a big effect on how the rest of the season goes. The problem is that they aren't only suffering from retirements now. Obviously, not finishing races is really bad for the championship aspirations, but the issue now is going to be compounded by the huge penalties they're going to be facing. Teams are only allowed to use a certain number of engine parts each season. This helps keep costs low and stops teams from using a brand new engine every race, which would be a huge advantage for the teams that could afford it. The engine part allowance is meant to last a driver for the whole season, but in round 9 of 22 in Canada, Charles Leclerc took his first penalty and started from the back of the grid. Now, each time he has an engine problem, he won't only not finish the race, but he will start the next one from the back of the grid. This is a huge blow to his driver's championship chances, but the problem doesn't stop there. Carlos Sainz has also used the maximum number of engine parts allowed, and that is before we take into account the damage to his engine in Austria. It is likely at the next stop on the calendar in France, he will be starting from the back of the grid due to engine penalties now. If they carry on going through engines at the speed they have been, both drivers could start 4 of the remaining 11 races at the back of the grid. That will destroy Ferrari's chances of taking the Constructors' title. It isn't just Ferrari though, it is their customers as well. Valtteri Bottas took an engine penalty in Austria and started from the pit lane. Zhou Guanyu retired during the formation lap as well when his engine shut off, but that is likely caused by something different. When Zhou next changes his engine though, he will suffer a grid penalty as well. The same is true of both Haas drivers also. They've used the maximum amount of internal combustion engines, turbos, and MGU-H and K allowed. Ferrari's decision to prioritize power over reliability makes sense for the upcoming seasons, but this year, when they've looked like having the best chance of taking a championship title for the first time in decades, it's a decision that's going to come back and bite them. Ferrari's season isn't over. The reliability fixes after summer might save them yet, but personally, I don't like their chances. Do you think Ferrari are going to be able to carry on fighting Red Bull, or are the engine penalties going to be too much for them? Let us know what you think in the comments section down below, and until next time, drive safe and bye bye.